Yajong, welcome back. I'm just going to jump right into it because this is a pretty big topic and I have a lot to say about it, but I'm going to try and just keep it to one video. It might come back again in future videos because it was such a huge part of my marriage that I will always just come back to touch on it. But just for this one video, I want to wrap up in this how big this was. In our Hmong culture, we don't really talk about abuse, and we don't have words for abuse, really. The only two major areas that I've ever heard anyone talk about is domestic violence and verbal abuse. So these are why people get divorced. It's just, the domestic abuse and verbal abuse. But no one talks about emotional abuse or psychological abuse, anything like that. And in my experience, I've never heard anyone talk about financial abuse as well. And for me, this was a big area. In my experience, I've come to what I call now the big five. There are five areas that I feel very strongly are very important. They're key points in a marriage, in making it work or fall apart. And for me, in no particular order, the first one is financial abuse. I did not see it as abuse at the time that it was happening. It wasn't until after I had divorced him that I really took a good look at it and made the connections and accepted that that was what it was. It was financial abuse. Remember that this is a young man that had married with every potential to earn a lot and to provide for a family comfortably. I wasn't looking for wealth, but I was looking for comfort. I was looking for security and safety, and all of that was just pulled right out from under me. And so we struggled a lot. And before we moved down to his home state, I just want to touch on how it was those first couple of years in Minnesota. It was when I first really experienced financial struggles. I have never ever gone to bed hungry, and I had that experience with this marriage, with this man. And we were newlyweds. Before I had married him, I had just a very tiny credit card at college, and I was working and paying on that. So I had probably decent credit, building it up as a college student. And then I married him, and what do you do when you get married, right? We're taught that you become two become one, and that includes your credit line, apparently, and your credit score. And so if their credit score is 530, so should yours. And so all papers had both of our names. We bought a car from me because we drove up there in his car. And so I had to get a car for me. And then we bought a house together. And then we remodeled the windows. Again, my name on the papers as well. So just those three things alone had already solidified the path of bad debt that I was about to get into, but I just didn't know it. Gosh, when I think back about how naive I was and how innocent, it just blows my mind. Okay, educate yourself, please. And if you don't know anything, then message me and I will go through it with you. But you should never go into marriage not having some sense of understanding of credit and debt. And that's my brief advice on that. Just dig into it. Find out what their credit score is. Nowadays I joke about it, but yeah, I will ask a man what his credit score is because it is very important. It's very telling. Not having any debt is also bad credit. So, anyways, I don't want to digress. So, financial abuse. Okay, we lived in Minnesota. Um, I have gone to bed without food. Okay, it is embarrassing to share that, but it happened. So I can't ignore it and I can't forget it because it's so huge. In this first world of two intelligent adults that are able bodied and can work and actually have the potential to earn a lot, how could I have gone to bed hungry? How could I have gone to bed without dinner? How could there be no food in the fridge? I don't understand. I just don't. Um, and so, let's see. Okay. The cars, they got repoed. That first car I bought got repoed. When we moved down to where his family lived, my successive cars got repoed, two of them. Um, and we had water shut off, power shut off. We've had debt collector letters and phone calls. I lost count of how many of those, you know. And then eventually, after we moved down to where his family lived, our debt was so huge. It was over $200,000 in debt. I remember that. I remember that because he suggested that we file for bankruptcy. And he told me not to tell anyone, not to tell his family that we were filing for bankruptcy. And I didn't even think of it, you know, because at that time I'm like, I don't even care anymore. I just want to get rid of this debt. I want to get rid of the debt collectors and the calls. And so he suggested it, and then we just went with it. But I do remember specifically that after all the calculations of our net debt, it was over $200,000. And you guys, we were married for less than 2 years, less than 3 years, and we had accumulated a combined debt of over $200,000. I just, I, anyways, so yes, so we filed for bankruptcy and didn't tell his family. I told my family. Yeah, told my dad. Um, and and then the biggest like wham hit me at the very, very end. It wasn't until I had divorced him that I realized the depth of the financial treachery that he stooped to for his selfish gains, for his selfish needs, that he would put me and the children at such a state of suffering and financial struggle that it really blew my mind when I realized what had happened. So here's the breakdown of it. I still think about it and it still pisses me off because um, when you are entrusted to someone to care for you and to provide for you, and when I say that, I'm not saying, hey, I don't want to do anything, you know, I just want this man to take care of all of me. No, that's not who I am. But there is, you know, the responsibilities that fall under the biblical man's role that he should be taken care of. And so these were neglected and failed. But going back to what I was saying, you know, the financial treachery that I had experienced, and this is what I'm going to reveal and share. When I divorced him and I filed my taxes for the very first time by myself, I saw something that I have never seen before in all the 16 years that I was married to this man. I got money back from my taxes. Let me say that again. I had a return from my taxes when I filed. And I was like so confused. I thought that there must have been a mistake. Because the previous years, right, all 16 years that I was married to this man, we owed back to the IRS in not just a few $100s, we owed in the thousands every single year. And I remember very specifically asking him one time, like, why are we still owing? You know, we're just barely making it week by week, paycheck to paycheck. We both have jobs that don't pay very much. And why are we owing in the thousands? And I remember specifically, he looked me in the eye and said, I don't know either. I don't know. I don't know why they're, you know, calculating that we owe them. And, you know, looking back, this was the moment that this man lied to me because he knew exactly why we were having to pay them back. And I'll tell you why. Because when you get a job and you file your paperwork, there's one question on there that asks you for your exemption and your number of exemptions. And you can choose anywhere from 0 to however many dependents are in your house. And for me, I'm putting 1 or 0 as my exemption claims. But for him, he is claiming all of us. All of us. And so people do that so that your take home is more. But that means that the IRS taxes you less. And so at the end of the year, when you file your income, if it turns out that, hey, the government didn't tax you enough, then this is what you owe back to make up the difference. And so every year we were paying them back in the thousands. And so when I got my first tax return after I divorced him, and I was like, wow, there is no mistake. I like double checked myself, made sure I entered everything. And for sure, I was getting it back. And I hadn't changed anything on my documentation. And I realized that, holy moly, not only was I getting these credits back through my income, but the credits that would have been paid to me were, in essence, applied toward his debt because we filed jointly. Follow me here. And so the remaining difference of debt he owed, I was paying on that as well. I was having to pay that back because I was thinking we, as a joint couple filing, this debt belongs to the both of us. When in actuality, this was his debt. This was all his debt that I was paying back on. So not only did he already steal the credit that I would have gotten on my own, but was applied to his debt, now he was stealing more from me because he asked me, I mean, essentially, right? He didn't have to ask me, but under the understanding that this is a joint debt that we owe together, I was already paying on half of that as well. So I didn't do the math, but you guys can just estimate, okay? 16 years of paying the IRS in the thousands, okay? So let's say, for example, I got a return for, let's say, 3,000, all right, just on my own. Okay, well, when we filed jointly, um, we owe 5,000, okay? So as an example. So basically, my credit had already been applied, and that was the difference that he still owed. So all of my credits have been paying toward his debt for 16 years. And then on top of that, I had to pay back what he owed in the difference as well. So, yeah, finding that out was not fun, and it made me very mad to understand how little love existed in that lifetime I had with this person. And it really hurt. It really hurt. Because the Bible says something that's very special. That if you are unable to provide and you are unable to care for someone entrusted to you, you are to give them a certificate of divorce so that someone else can take care of them where you have failed. I am paraphrasing, but I will find you the verse at a later video and explain more on that, okay? But because of selfish means, and because I was a workhorse and I could take care of where he lacked and I could be the man where he should have been, he kept me around, right? So using me, my effort, my strength, and every ounce that I could, I don't know, I labored for a very, very long time to see zero gain, $0 back, until I finally divorced him. And when that happened and I saw that return on my taxes, I did a little jig of a dance because the whole truth of it really became real, and it was very sad because I think during that time I was just denying that it was as bad as it was. I didn't want to believe that this man could love me so little, could care so little, that he would willingly put me through so much suffering. And not just me, but our children, our young children, who didn't know any better. But they knew enough that they couldn't get new toys. And as a mother, that hurts in a place that doesn't heal. It cuts you in places that can't be seen, and you bleed where no one can see, and it was very treacherous. So not only did the financial treachery hurt our marriage, hurt me, but it also hurt our children. And like I said in a previous video, going through my kids, hurting my kids, oh, that's wrong. And um, that first year after the divorce was probably just a year of so much relief, relief that I didn't have to suffer anymore. It became so clear and so evident to me that the years that the locusts have eaten were behind me, and whatever is before me, if I could have gotten through that, there is nothing before me that I can't get through. And so that gave me strength to press on and to move on. I will never forget that financial abuse. For me, that's what happened. For others, it's in different various ways. Maybe your spouse is the one that keeps all the cash. Maybe you don't know how much money you have in the bank account. Maybe you don't have a debit card. Maybe you don't know how to write checks. Maybe you have to ask for cash just for a weekly stipend or monthly allowance. But any time where the thought of money causes you to be anxious or stressed out or sleepless or makes you ill, makes you sick, then something is wrong, and you really need to think about it. Because I didn't have the wisdom and the knowledge early on to really think about this and see it as a red flag. But I'm telling you that that is a red flag now, and I would never repeat that again as long as I live, and I will always advocate for that, for watching red flags. And yes, I am pro marriage, but if there is any toxicity of that level, and that harm to your well being, then yes, I will advocate for divorce, and I will say, find freedom. Our God is a God that is loving and forgiving, and you may think that no one sees you suffering, but in my experience, I can promise you that God alone has seen all the ways that I have suffered, and have seen all the nights that I've cried, or the mornings that I've cried, the meals that I've missed, the nights that I've, gone to sleep alone, or all of those things, all the things that troubled me. He alone has seen it all. And when I removed myself from that, just what lifted off of my shoulders and my chest, it felt like, and I've said this in other ways, I felt like the sun shone on my face again. I actually felt what sunshine should feel like. And this dark cave that I was in, this hovel, completely evaporated in light of this sun, when I chose to step away and step out and move on from that. And so, yeah, any questions on financial abuse, your comments are welcome. Thank you for watching. This ran a little long, but you're going to hear me, reflect back on this, because it touches so much in the stages of, in the length of my marriage. And so I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day where you are, and see you again soon. Shinjiro. Bye.